I watch her through the kitchen window, moving between tables with that practiced grace waitresses develop after years of dodging impatient customers and flying plates. Sarah's been working at my diner for 3 months now, and I've been coming in disguised as a regular customer for 2 weeks trying to understand why our newest location's numbers don't add up. What I'm seeing makes my stomach turn. She's carrying a full tray of plates with her left hand while her right arm hangs stiffly at her side, and when she thinks nobody's looking, I catch her wincing with every step. The cast on her wrist is barely visible under the long sleeve she's pulled down to cover it, but I notice because I've been watching. My name is David Martinez, and I own 17 diners across 3 states. Started with one location 22 years ago after my father died, and left me nothing but debt and a dream he never got to chase. Now I employ over 400 people, and every single one of them matters to me. That's why I'm sitting in booth 7 at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning, wearing a baseball cap and 3 days of stubble, pretending to read yesterday's newspaper while I observe what's really happening in my own business. And what I'm seeing is going to change everything. Sarah approaches my table with that forced smile I've come to recognize, the one that says she's in pain but can't afford to show it. She's maybe 25, with tired eyes that remind me of my sister when she was working 2 jobs to put herself through nursing school. "More coffee, sir?" she asks, already reaching for the pot with her good hand. I nod and watch her pour, noting how she braces her injured wrist against her hip to steady herself. The cast is old, at least 6 weeks, and starting to fray around the edges. This woman has been working injured for over. "How's the breakfast treating you?" Sarah asks, gesturing to the untouched pancakes I ordered 40 minutes ago. I've been too busy observing to eat, but I can't tell her that. "Great, I lie. You've been here long?" "Few months," she says, shifting her weight from foot to foot. There's something in her voice, a careful neutrality that sets off every alarm bell I have. In 22 years of running restaurants, I've learned to read people, and Sarah is holding back. Must be nice, having steady work. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. Steady's one word for it. Before I can ask what she means, a sharp voice cuts across the diner. "Sarah, table 12 needs their check, and the coffee station's empty again." The voice belongs to Marcus Webb, my manager, and the tone makes my jaw clench. I've known Marcus for 3 years, hired him because he had impressive credentials and promised to run a tight ship. From where I'm sitting, watching him bark orders at a woman working with a broken hand, his version of tight feels more like strangling. Sarah's face goes carefully blank. "Right away, Mr. Webb." She hurries off, favoring her injured side, and I force myself to stay seated when every instinct tells me to follow Marcus into his office and demand answers. But I'm not here as the owner today. I'm here as a customer, which means I get to see what really happens when the boss isn't watching. What I see over the next hour makes me question every assumption I've had about this place. Sarah runs between tables like she's being timed, never stopping, never slowing down, despite the obvious pain she's in. Marcus hovers near the register, watching her with the intensity of a hawk, and every time she pauses for more than a few seconds, he finds something for her to do. "Sarah, wipe down table 6. Sarah, the salt shakers need filling. Sarah, there's a spot on the window in booth 3. Each command delivered with that same sharp edge, like she's constantly disappointing him just by existing. I count 17 direct orders in 45 minutes. For a waitress who's clearly injured and struggling to keep up, it's excessive. It's cruel, and it's happening in my restaurant. During the lunch rush, things get worse. The diner fills with construction workers from the site down the road, office employees grabbing quick meals, and families with restless children. Sarah moves between them all with that same forced efficiency, but I can see her breaking down. Her good hand shakes slightly when she pours coffee. She bumps into a chair and can't quite swallow the gasp of pain fast enough. When she drops a fork and has to bend down to pick it up, I watch her close her eyes for just a moment, gathering strength. Marcus notices too, but instead of asking if she needs help, he appears at her elbow with criticism. "You're moving slower than usual," he says, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "Everything okay?" The question sounds concerned, but his tone suggests anything but concern. It's a performance, and everyone in earshot is the audience. Sarah straightens up, fork in hand, and her smile could power the entire diner. "Just fine, Mr. Webb." "Sorry about that." "Good," he says, but he doesn't move away. He stands there watching her, making sure she knows she's being monitored, making sure she knows that any sign of weakness will be noted and used against her. I want to intervene, but I force myself to wait. There's more happening here than workplace harassment, and I need to understand all of it before I act. After Marcus walks away, I catch Sarah's eye and gesture toward my empty coffee cup. She comes over immediately, moving carefully. Refill? Please. As she pours, I take a chance. That manager of yours seems. I let the sentence hang, inviting her to fill in the blank. Sarah's hand stills for just a moment. Mr. Webb runs a professional establishment. The words sound rehearsed, like she said them before. Probably to other customers who've noticed Marcus's behavior. Professional. I repeat. That's one word for it. She meets my eyes then, and for just a second, I see past the careful facade. There's anger there, and frustration, and something that looks like desperation. Then the mask slips back into place. Will there be anything else? Actually, yeah. I lean forward slightly, lowering my voice. I'm curious about something. How long have you been working with that cast on your hand? The question hits her like a physical blow. She steps back, nearly dropping the coffee pot, and I see real fear flash across her face. I don't know what you mean. The cast? I repeat gently. Under your sleeve. You've been favoring your right side all morning, and when you pour coffee, you brace your wrist against your hip. I'm guessing 6 weeks old? Maybe 8? Sarah glances around desperately, checking to see if anyone else heard. Marcus is busy with a customer at the register, but she's still terrified. Sir, I really can't. I'm not trying to get you in trouble, I say quickly. I'm just concerned. You're clearly in pain, and you're working harder than anyone else in here. Doesn't seem fair. For a moment, I think she might actually talk to me. Her mouth opens slightly, and I can see her weighing her options. Then Marcus's voice cuts across the diner again. Sarah, your break was over 5 minutes ago. The moment is gone. Sarah straightens up, and when she looks at me again, the walls are back up. Everything's fine, she says firmly. Thank you for your concern. She walks away before I can respond, but I notice she doesn't go directly to Marcus. Instead, she takes a detour past the kitchen, and I catch her leaning against the wall for just a moment, eyes closed, gathering herself. When she emerges, the smile is back in place, and she's ready to face whatever comes next. I stay for another 2 hours, watching the dynamic play out. Marcus continues his pattern of micromanagement, finding fault with everything Sarah does while ignoring the obvious signs that she's injured. The other staff members notice too, I realize. The cook, an older man named Pete, keeps shooting worried glances in Sarah's direction. The other waitress, Linda, quietly helps bust Sarah's tables when Marcus isn't looking. They're trying to protect her, which tells me this has been going on for a while. By the time I leave, I have a clear picture of what's happening in my diner, and it's nothing like what Marcus has been reporting. According to his weekly summaries, we have a model employee in Sarah, someone who's quickly adapted to our standards and shows real potential for advancement. He's recommended her for additional training and possibly a shift supervisor position within the next few months. But the woman I've been watching all day is being systematically ground down by the very person who's supposed to be supporting her development. She's working injured because she can't afford not to work. She's being harassed because Marcus knows she won't fight back. And she's being set up to fail by someone who holds all the power in her professional life. As I walk to my car, I think about my father. He would have fired Marcus on the spot and personally driven Sarah to the hospital to have her hand properly examined. He believed that how you treat people when they're vulnerable tells you everything you need to know about their character. Marcus has been showing me his character all day, and I don't like what I've seen. But I'm not my father, and I don't make decisions based on emotion alone. I need more information before I act, which means I need to come back tomorrow and see if today was an aberration or part of a pattern. I suspect it's the latter, but I owe it to my employees and my business to be thorough. That evening, I sit in my home office reviewing Marcus's personnel files and weekly reports from the past 3 months. Everything looks professional on paper. Turnover is within acceptable ranges. Customer satisfaction scores are solid. Revenue targets are being met consistently, but numbers don't tell the whole story. And after what I witnessed today, I'm questioning every metric Marcus has provided. I call my assistant and ask her to pull the employee files for the entire staff at that location. I want to know everything about Sarah, about Marcus, and about anyone else who might be caught in whatever web of dysfunction I've stumbled into. The files arrive by email within an hour, and what I find makes me pour myself a double scotch. Sarah's employment application lists her as a single mother with a 4-year-old daughter. Her previous job was at a factory that closed down 6 months ago, leaving her unemployed for 3 months before she found work at my diner. She's studying for her GED at night and hopes to eventually go to nursing school. Her emergency contact is her mother, who lives 200 miles away. She's exactly the kind of employee I want to succeed, someone who's working hard to build a better life for herself and her child. And Marcus's system. His file is less inspiring. 3 years with my company, previously managed 2 other locations before being promoted to oversee the newest site. His references were solid, his interview went well, and his first year's performance evaluations were acceptable. But looking more closely at the timeline, I noticed something troubling. Both of his previous locations experienced higher than average turnover during his tenure. Exit interviews mentioned management style as a concern, but nothing specific enough to warrant action. I made a note to look into it further, but then got distracted by expansion plans and budget meetings. Now I'm wondering how many other Sarahs I've failed by. The next morning, I'm back in booth 7 by 9 a.m., same disguise, same newspaper. But this time, I'm not just observing, I'm gathering evidence. Sarah arrives for her shift 10 minutes early, already in uniform, already smiling that practiced smile. But when she thinks no one is looking, I catch her flexing her injured hand and wincing. The cast is definitely older than Marcus led me to believe, and the fact that she's still working despite obvious pain tells me everything I need to know about her financial situation. She can't afford to take time off. She can't afford to complain. She can't afford to do anything except. Marcus arrives 15 minutes after Sarah, coffee in hand, looking like a man who's never had to worry about making rent or feeding anyone but himself. He barely acknowledges her, but I notice him watching her movements, cataloging every slight hesitation, every careful gesture she makes to protect her injured hand. He's looking for weakness, and Sarah is trying desperately not to show any. The morning plays out much like the previous day, with Marcus finding constant reasons to criticize Sarah's performance while ignoring her obvious physical limitations. By lunch, but the moment that breaks my heart comes at 2:30. During the afternoon lull, Sarah is refilling napkin dispensers when a customer at table 9 flags her down. He's an elderly man who's been nursing the same cup of coffee for an hour. Probably one of those retired folks who comes in for the company as much as the caffeine. "Excuse me, honey," he says gently. "I couldn't help but notice you've been favoring that arm. Are you all right?" Sarah freezes, napkin dispenser half full in her good hand. I can see her calculating, trying to figure out how to respond without drawing Marcus's attention. But it's too late. Marcus appears as if summoned, sliding up behind Sarah with that false concern he wears like cologne. "Is there a problem here?" he asks the customer, but his eyes are on Sarah. "No problem," the elderly man says. "Just asking after this young lady's well-being. Seems like she might be hurting." "Sarah's fine," Marcus says smoothly. "Aren't you, Sarah?" The question isn't really a question. It's a command, delivered with the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Sarah nods quickly. "Just fine. Thank you for asking, though." She hurries away, leaving the elderly customer looking confused and concerned. Marcus lingers for a moment, making small talk about the weather, but I can see him watching Sarah in his peripheral vision, making sure she knows she's been noticed, making sure she understands that any sign of vulnerability will be used against her. After the customer leaves, Marcus corners Sarah near the coffee station. I'm too far away to hear the conversation, but I don't need to. His body language says everything. The way he leans in slightly, invading her personal space, the way he gestures with his hands, cutting through the air like verbal knives. The way Sarah shrinks back, nodding rapidly, her face growing paler with each word. When he finally walks away, Sarah stands there for a long moment, staring at the coffee pot like it holds the answers to questions she's afraid to ask. Then she straightens up, puts on that familiar smile, and gets back to work. But something has changed. The resilience I admired yesterday seems more fragile today, like a wire that's been bent too many times and is finally starting to show stress fractures. I can't watch anymore. I pay my bill, leave a substantial tip, and walk out to my car with my jaw clenched so tight my teeth hurt. In 22 years of business, I've dealt with difficult employees, challenging customers, and economic downturns that nearly killed my company. But I've never felt as angry as I do right now, sitting in the parking lot of my own diner, knowing that someone I trusted is systematically abusing an employee who depends on this job to feed her child. Tomorrow I'm going back one more time, not as a customer, not as an observer, but as the owner of this business. And Marcus Webb is going to learn what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness and assume that power gives you the right to destroy people's lives. Because Sarah doesn't know it yet, but she's about to discover that sometimes, when you're falling, someone catches you. And sometimes, that someone has the authority to make sure you... I arrive at the diner the next morning 30 minutes before opening, using my master key to let myself in through the back entrance. The prep cook, Pete, nearly jumps out of his skin when he sees me in the kitchen. "Mr. Martinez, I didn't know you were coming by today." I've always made a point of knowing my employees, names, and Pete's been with the company for 8 years, across 2 locations. He's the kind of steady, reliable worker who keeps a kitchen running smooth, and right now, he looks nervous as hell. "Morning, Pete. Just wanted to check on how things are running. I keep my voice casual, but I can see him doing quick mental calculations, trying to figure out if he's in trouble. Everything's good, sir. Real good. We've been hitting all our numbers, staying on budget. I'm sure you have. Marcus seems to run a tight ship. Pete's expression shifts slightly, and I catch something that might be discomfort before he turns back to the grill. Yes, sir. Mr. Webb is very thorough. Thorough. That's an interesting word choice. I file it away and help myself to coffee from the large pot Pete keeps going for staff. How's the team working out? Any issues I should know about? Team's solid, Pete says, but he's not meeting my eyes anymore. Everyone pulls their weight. Sarah seems like a hard worker. The name hits Pete like I thought it might. His shoulders tense, and he starts scraping the grill with more force than necessary. Sarah's good people. Real good people. She's been hurt, though. Hand injury? Pete stops scraping and looks at me directly for the first time since I walked in. There's something in his eyes, a mixture of protectiveness and frustration that tells me everything I need to know. She's been hurt, he says carefully, but she keeps coming to work anyway, takes care of business. Even with the cast? Especially with the cast. The words come out harder than Pete probably intended, and he immediately looks like he wants to take them back. But he doesn't, and I respect him for that. Pete, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to know that whatever you tell me stays between us unless you say otherwise. How is Marcus treating the staff? The question hangs in the air between us like smoke. Pete sets down his scraper and looks at me for a long moment, weighing his options. He's been in restaurants long enough to know that the wrong answer to the wrong person can cost you your job. But he's also been around long enough to recognize when someone in authority is asking because they actually care about the answer. Mr. Martinez, I've worked for you for 8 years, followed you from the downtown location when you offered me this position. In all that time, you've never asked me to throw anyone under the bus, and you've always treated me fair. That's right. So when I tell you that what's happening to Sarah isn't right, I'm hoping you'll believe me when I say I'm not the kind of man who complains just to complain. I'm listening. Pete wipes his hands on his apron and leans against the prep counter. Sarah broke her hand 6 weeks ago. Fell down some stairs at her apartment building, trying to carry groceries, and her daughter's school backpack at the same time. Single mother, you know? Always trying to do 3 things at once. I nod, encouraging him to continue. She called in the next day, told Marcus what happened, said she'd need some time off to heal properly. Doctor wanted her off work for 8 weeks minimum. What did Marcus tell her? Told her he was sorry to hear about the accident, but that he couldn't hold her position that long. Said the best he could do was give her 3 days, and after that she'd need to decide if she wanted the job or not. The casual cruelty of it hits me like a punch to the stomach. 3 days for a broken hand. 3 days, Pete confirms, for a single mother with a 4-year-old and no other source of income. Sarah came back on day 4 with her arm in a cast and that smile she wears, ready to work. Marcus made it clear that any accommodation for her injury would be considered special treatment, and special treatment wasn't something he believed in. So she's been working injured for 6 weeks. Working injured, working scared, working harder than anyone else, because she knows Marcus is looking for any excuse to let her go. You've seen how he watches her, right? Like a hawk circling something wounded. I have seen it, and the image makes my blood pressure spike. Has he written her up? Any formal disciplinary action? Nothing formal. Marcus is too smart for that, but he's been building a case, piece by piece. Sarah's 15 seconds late coming back from break? He mentions it in conversation with other staff. Make sure everyone knows she's not pulling her weight. She needs to sit down for 30 seconds because her hand is throbbing. He finds extra tasks for her, keeps her moving until she's practically swaying on her feet. Jesus! It gets worse. Last week, Sarah asked if she could switch from closing shifts to opening shifts. Her babysitter charges extra for late nights, and money's already tight with the medical bills from her accident. Marcus told her that schedule changes were earned through exceptional performance, and that her recent work hadn't been exceptional. Pete's voice gets harder with each word. Mr. Martinez, Sarah works circles around employees who are healthy and half her age. She's never missed a day except for those first 3 after her accident. She stays late when we're short-staffed, comes in early when someone calls out sick. But because she can't carry 4 plates at once anymore, because she needs an extra second to open containers with one good hand, Marcus treats her like she's failing. The kitchen door swings open, and Linda, the other waitress, pokes her head in. "Pete, have you seen—" "Oh, Mr. Martinez." She looks genuinely surprised to see me, but not alarmed. That's a good sign. "Morning, Linda. How are things?" "Things are good. Really good. Just looking for the backup coffee filters. We go through them so fast during the morning rush." She starts to duck back out, but I stop her. "Linda, you got a minute?" She glances at Pete, who gives her a slight nod, then steps fully into the kitchen. Linda's been with us for 2 years, transferred from our location across town when her husband got a job in this area. She's competent, reliable, and from what I've observed, genuinely cares about her coworkers. "What can I help you with?" "I've been hearing about some concerns regarding staff treatment." Pete was just filling me in on Sarah's situation. Linda's expression immediately becomes more guarded. "What kind of concerns?" "The kind where an employee works 6 weeks with a broken hand, because she's afraid to ask for proper accommodation." Linda looks between Pete and me, clearly trying to decide how much to say. Pete gives her another nod, more encouraging this time. "Sarah's been struggling," Linda says finally. "We all see it. We try to help when we can. But Marcus," she trails off. "Marcus what?" "Marcus makes it clear that helping each other out is fine, but that everyone needs to handle their own responsibilities. If he catches me bussing Sarah's tables, or Pete sending out food that's supposed to be her pickup, he pulls us aside for a conversation about professional boundaries." Professional boundaries, I repeat, that's what he calls it. But what it really means is that Sarah has to suffer alone, and the rest of us have to watch it happen. Linda's voice gets stronger as she talks, like she's been waiting months to say these words to someone who might actually listen. "Mr. Martinez, Sarah is good at this job. Better than good. Customers ask for her by name. She remembers their orders, knows their kids' names, makes everyone feel welcome, but she's being slowly destroyed by someone who's supposed to be supporting her. Has she talked to any of you about it?" Sarah doesn't complain, ever. But sometimes, at the end of a double shift, when she thinks nobody's looking, I see her in the parking lot crying in her car. Not because of the pain in her hand, though that's real enough, because she's terrified she's going to lose this job, and she doesn't know what she'll do if that happens. The picture gets clearer and uglier with every detail. I'm about to ask another question when I hear Marcus's voice from the dining room. He's arrived early, which isn't unusual, but his tone suggests he's already found something to criticize. "We better get back to prep," Pete says quickly. He doesn't like it when we're all in the kitchen talking. Of course he doesn't. I check my watch. "What time does Sarah usually get here?" 7:30, Linda says. 15 minutes before her shift, every single day. Uses the time to set up her station and review any specials or changes Marcus has posted. Good. I'll wait for her. Linda and Pete exchange glances. "Mr. Martinez," Pete says carefully, "if you're planning to talk to Sarah about Marcus, you should know that she's going to be terrified. She'll think someone complained and that she's about to lose her job." "I understand." "Do you? Because Sarah's got a 4-year-old daughter who depends on her paycheck. She's got medical bills from her accident that are probably crushing her financially. She's got a dream of going to nursing school that gets further away every month she can't save money. And she's convinced that if she loses this job, she'll end up homeless." Pete's words hit harder than I expected. This isn't just about workplace harassment for her. This is about survival. "So whatever you're planning to do, please remember that Sarah has everything to lose, and Marcus has all the power." I nod, understanding the weight of what Pete's telling me. "I appreciate the honesty. Both of you. And I want you to know that whatever happens next, your jobs are safe." Speaking up took courage, and I respect that. They both look relieved, but still worried, as they should be. What I'm about to do will change everything for everyone in this diner, and change is always scary, even when it's necessary. At 7:28, I watch through the kitchen window as Sarah pulls into the parking lot in a beat-up Honda that's seen better years. She sits in her car for nearly 2 full minutes, and I wonder if she's giving herself a pep talk or just gathering the energy to face another day of Marcus's management style. When she finally gets out, I can see the careful way she moves, protecting her injured hand while managing her purse and the small lunch bag she carries. She's dressed in the standard uniform polo and black pants, but everything looks freshly pressed and carefully maintained. This is someone who takes pride in her. I meet her at the staff entrance, timing it so I'm coming out as she's coming in. Sarah? I'm David Martinez. I own this place. The color drains from her face immediately. Mr. Martinez. I didn't know you were coming in today. Is everything all right? Did I do something wrong? The rapid-fire questions tell me everything about her mental state. She's so conditioned to expect criticism that meeting the owner can only mean trouble. Everything's fine, I say quickly. Actually, I was hoping we could talk for a few minutes before your shift starts. Would that be okay? She nods, but I can see her hands shaking slightly. The injured one is trembling more than the other, probably from a combination of nerves and pain. Of course, sir. Whatever you need. I guide her to a small table in the back corner of the dining room, away from the kitchen where Marcus might overhear. Sarah sits on the edge of her chair like she's ready to run, and I realize I need to handle this very carefully. Sarah, first thing I want you to know is that you're not in trouble. You haven't done anything wrong, and your job is not in jeopardy because we're having this conversation, okay? She nods, but doesn't look convinced. I've been coming in as a customer for the past few days, observing how things run when I'm not expected. I do this at all my locations occasionally, just to get a real picture of day-to-day operations. Okay, she says quietly. During my observations, I noticed that you've been working with an injury. A broken hand, from what I can tell. Sarah's eyes widen, and she instinctively pulls her injured arm closer to her body. I can do my job, Mr. Martinez. The cast doesn't slow me down. I've been keeping up with all my responsibilities. Sarah, I'm not questioning your work ethic. From what I've seen, you work harder than anyone else here. What I'm questioning is why you've been working with a serious injury for what looks like several weeks. The words come out in a rush then, like she's been practicing this explanation. I broke my hand 6 weeks ago in an accident at home. I called Mr. Webb the next day to report it, and he said he could give me 3 days to recover. But after that, I'd need to decide if I wanted to keep my job. I couldn't afford to lose the job, so I came back. The doctor said it would heal fine as long as I was careful, and I have been careful. I haven't let it impact my performance. Every word confirms what Pete told me earlier, but hearing it directly from Sarah makes it worse. Sarah, did you know that under company policy, you're entitled to unpaid medical leave for up to 12 weeks for a serious injury? Her mouth falls open slightly. No, I didn't know that. Did Marcus explain your options when you called to report the injury? He said he was sorry it happened, but that he couldn't hold my position for more than 3 days. He said the restaurant business doesn't allow for extended absences. That's not true, and even if you had chosen to work while injured, you should have been offered accommodations to help you do your job safely. Accommodations, modified duties, adjusted schedules, assistance with tasks that require 2 hands. Basic accommodations that any responsible manager should have discussed with you. Sarah stares at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. Mr. Webb never mentioned anything like that. He said that if I came back to work, I needed to be able to do everything exactly the same as before, or it wouldn't be fair to the other employees. The systematic deception is breathtaking. Marcus hasn't just failed to follow company policy. He's actively lied to an injured employee to force her into a situation where she had to choose between her health and her livelihood. Sarah, I need to ask you some questions about your working relationship with Marcus, and I want you to know that anything you tell me will be kept confidential unless you specifically give me permission to share it. Are you comfortable with that? She nods, but I can see her calculating again, trying to figure out what the right answer is. Has Marcus ever made comments about your injury or your ability to perform your job? He's mentioned that I seem slower than usual, and last week he said that customer service requires enthusiasm, and that if I was having trouble projecting enthusiasm, maybe I should consider whether this was the right job for me. Did he say this in front of other staff members? Some of it, and in front of customers too sometimes. Like when that elderly gentleman asked if I was okay yesterday, and Mr. Webb made it clear that I should have handled it differently. She was listening to that conversation. Of course she was. How did that make you feel? Embarrassed. Scared. Like I was failing at something I used to be good at. Sarah's voice gets smaller with each word. Mr. Martinez, I know I'm not performing at the same level as before my accident. I know I'm slower, and I know I can't carry as much at once, but I'm doing the best I can, and I thought that if I just kept working hard, eventually I'd get better, and things would go back to normal. Sarah, you're working with a broken hand. The fact that you can do this job at all is remarkable. You shouldn't have to apologize for needing time to heal. For the first time since we started talking, I see tears in her eyes. I can't afford time to heal. I've got a daughter and medical bills, and if I lose this job, I don't know what happens to us. My mom keeps telling me to come home to Ohio, but there's no work there either, and at least here, Emma's settled in a good school. The full picture crystallizes then. Sarah isn't just dealing with workplace harassment. She's trapped by circumstances that make it impossible for her to fight back. Marcus knows this, and he's using her vulnerability against her. Sarah, what if I told you that there might be other options? That you don't have to choose between healing properly and keeping your job. She wipes her eyes quickly, like she's embarrassed to be showing emotion. What do you mean? I mean that what's been happening to you isn't okay, and it's not how this company operates. And I mean that you deserve better than what you've been getting. Before she can respond, Marcus's voice cuts across the dining room. Sarah, you're supposed to be setting up your station, not sitting around talking. He's walking toward us with that familiar sharp edge in his voice. But when he gets close enough to recognize me, his entire demeanor shifts. Mr. Martinez, I didn't realize you were here. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, Marcus. Sarah and I were just discussing some operational questions. Of course. Sarah's very dedicated, always eager to discuss ways to improve her performance. The way he says it makes my skin crawl. It's a subtle dig, disguised as praise, delivered in front of the owner to make himself look supportive while reminding Sarah of her perceived shortcomings. Actually, Marcus, I was just telling Sarah how impressed I've been with her work ethic. Working through an injury shows real dedication to the team. Marcus's smile falters slightly. Well, we all do what we need to do. Some more than others, I say, holding his gaze. Sarah, why don't you go ahead and get ready for your shift? Marcus and I have some things to discuss. She nods quickly and hurries away, but not before I catch the worry in her eyes. She thinks this conversation is going to make things worse for her, and given Marcus's track record, she's probably right, but not for much longer. Marcus, let's step into the office. The next 20 minutes change everything. Close the door, Marcus. We're in the small office at the back of the diner, surrounded by filing cabinets and the motivational posters that corporate sends to all locations. Marcus settles into his chair behind the desk, but something in my tone keeps him from getting too comfortable. I remain standing, a deliberate choice that shifts the power dynamic in the room. Is there something specific you wanted to discuss, Mr. Martinez? Sarah's injury. Walk me through how you handled it. The question catches him off guard, and I watch him scramble to construct an answer that makes him look competent. Sarah's been very professional about the whole situation. She reported the accident immediately, took the time she needed to get medical attention, and came back ready to work. It's exactly how you'd want an employee to handle a personal issue. How much time did you offer her for recovery? Well, in the restaurant business, you know how it is. We can't really afford to have positions empty for extended periods. I gave her what time I could. That's not what I asked. How much time did you offer her? Marcus shifts in his chair. 3 days seemed reasonable for the initial healing period. 3 days for a broken hand. She didn't seem to think she'd need more than that. The lie comes so smoothly, I almost believe he believes it himself. But I've spent the last 3 days watching Sarah struggle, and I've heard her side of the story. There's no room for misinterpretation here. Marcus, are you familiar with our company's medical leave policy? Of course, but Sarah never requested extended leave.